A side, B side, what side are you on?
Well, hello.
Hello, we meet again.
I just like giving you different variations now because it seems to throw you off a little bit. And you're like, wait a minute.
Wait, was that thrown off? I like matched you in key
No,
and
you
rhythm.
did match me last time I threw you off. This time you were ready.
Yeah, that's true. I'm ready now. But also,
So,
like last time you threw me off, but this time it sounded musical, and I was like, "That's okay." Like I'm always in a musical, no one else is paying attention to,
that's true.
so I'm
Your
ready.
life is a musical. You live in a musical.
There are so many times when I am at work and I sing things that I don't mean to sing, but I
Mm.
just sing them, and my coworkers will look at me and be like, "What is happening?" I'm
Yeah.
like, "Did you not hear like the 3 note lead in?"
Yeah. Did you not hear the theme music as I walked into the room? That's
Da
my
da da da
life.
da.
Yeah. Hmm.
Uh, so many times I have to get into the kitchen and we have our sous chef stands right there. He's expoing, he's doing his job, but I'm right behind him, so I have to say behind. And
Hmm.
it's really boring to just say behind.
So you spice it up.
I do,
Yeah.
and but I try to keep it low.
Hmm.
But I've come to realize that Grayson, our sous chef, is like his superpower is hearing
Hmm.
because I will like whisper stuff that I think is funny to me, and then he'll look at me like, "Really, we're doing that?" Like so many. Like one of my favorite things is like because it's behind, but it's also a corner. So I'm like, I'm coming around the corner when I come to get some plates, and like, but I whisper it
Hmm.
because I know how absurd I sound. And he just looks at me. He's like, "Okay, what do you call me, a mountain?" That was not my intended consequence, but touche, sir. I bring things to the table and I'm like, "Hello, here are your plates." And they're like, "Thank you, Mrs. Doubtfire, for serving us today."
Oh my goodness.
So how was your week? What'd you watch? What'd you do? Did you
Okay,
fight? Did you get
so
any fights? Any fist fights? Kickboxing?
no, but I feel like everybody wanted to fight Netflix on Sunday night because of course Sunday was supposed to be the live it was supposed to be the live reunion for all of the um um
Season 4 contestants of
yes.
Love Is Blind.
Yes. And it was supposed to start at 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock, the button pops up live. This will be the second thing that Netflix has streamed live. Well, 7 o'clock, or like 8 o'clock, where my mom was, we're on the phone together. You hit the live now button, nothing happens. 7:10, nothing happens. By like 7:15, I think some of the cast was saying, "Hey, we're having technical difficulties. We'll be there, whatever." So Netflix had people waiting over an hour, between like an hour 15, an hour and a half, before they finally just said, "Hey, we're sorry, we can't do this. We're gonna tape it and put it on Netflix as soon as possible." So it didn't air until Monday at 2 o'clock my time. They posted it Monday, 12 Pacific.
Like
And
that blows me away. That like, yeah, technical difficulties happen, but to legitimately just give up,
yeah, it was,
that's
I mean, and so it had like everybody mad because everybody was like, so many people. And I guess that's what happened. Like, so many people logged in, it kind of crashed and they just couldn't get it to work. But like, there were people, like Twitter was going crazy. There was also like live um live chats on Instagram that were going
Mhm.
crazy. I mean, the tweets were going and they were crazy. Like Hulu came for Netflix,
Oh yeah, they
obviously.
did.
Redbox, a freaking Blockbuster, Pluto TV even jumped in the chat. I was like, what is happening? Cheesecake Factory. It was wild. So many people were just like, what is going on? Even AOC like jumped in the chat. So that
Oh
just tells you.
yeah. Now it's going to be in a House committee in like a week. Well, like, you saw what happened with Taylor Swift. We had a congressional hearing on like
Uh-huh.
why does Ticketmaster suck?
So it was pretty funny. The quote unquote live reunion or the taped reunion that they aired the next day, it was meh. Of course, they did ask the questions that people wanted. Like there was a whole video of one of the guys, Paul, walking out of a room. I don't want to give any spoilers in case you haven't seen it, but like, what are you waiting for? If you watch it, like, hurry up. Let's chat
Yeah,
about it.
I'm not gonna watch it. So.
I know you're not, but so one of the guys, Paul, there's a scene where he's walking away from his fiance, and like her mom and some of her friends are there, and people like slowed the video down because they say it looks like so her mom walks past the camera right as he's walking out of the room, and he takes his hand out of his pocket, and it's like, did he smack the butt of her friend or not? And so that was like a question that everybody wanted to know the answer to. And another guy, Kwame, they were like, oh, that's not even your real sister, that's a paid actor. And so that was addressed. So like the questions were addressed, but it was just very like blah.
Delayed. Yeah.
So a lot of people, apparently there's like a petition to have Nick and Vanessa Lachey removed as the host, because they're just boring. Which I feel like Vanessa was really trying to kind of stir up some drama, but like the cast was just like, probably because they sat there for so long too. I mean,
like,
unless it was all a ploy and they didn't really sit there and it was just like a marketing thing. I don't know, because that's a conspiracy too.
I don't like that is a really bad marketing. Like, you don't open a restaurant and be like, hey, welcome to our grand opening. We have nothing.
Yeah.
But come back tomorrow. Like, that's not gonna work.
Yeah. So there's that. I watched that. I started CB Strike. I've been trying to finish that season 2 of that. It's on HBO.
Okay.
That's pretty decent. He's like excuse me, he's like a private investigator, and it's not
Does he wear a trench coat?
actually, he does, which is kind of
Oh,
funny.
I'm in. I'm
does.
all in.
It's
Because I was already in with private detective, private investigator, and
yeah.
like, for me, trench coat is just a bonus.
No,
I have
he wears
way
a trench
more
coat.
trench coats than someone who doesn't have a hobby of flashing people should have.
Okay, Rick Astley, never gonna give it up with your trench coat. But it's not, what is it? It's not an anthology. It's episodic because the whole season connects. Is that right? Am I getting it backwards?
So it is an anthology.
It is an anthology. Okay.
Yeah. Because it's
episodic
a
would mean
singular,
each is by itself.
That is my understanding. But
okay.
I mean, I also understand a lot of things more.
So that's pretty good. I started watching The Company You Keep. Have I talked about that one before?
You have not. This
So,
is the new super handsome dude from Heroes.
yes, the dad from This Is Us, Jack.
Okay. Also, he was on This Is Us, because I just skipped 2 decades, but whatever.
Yeah, you really took it back. He was on Gilmore Girls. I mean, he was, but let's bring it forward a few decades, Grandpa.
I only watched 1 episode of This Is Us, and he was dead by that point.
He was dead on the first episode.
Well, yeah, I watched the finale, so.
So yes, Milo Ventimiglia has a new show where he and his family are like a bunch of con artists, but they're like the Robin Hood. They con the rich, kind of give to the poor, whatever type of thing.
Yeah, very much like a leverage, white collar scenario.
Yes. And it is really good. And so the first episode, basically, he and this woman, Emma, meet. She's a CIA agent, but of course she doesn't tell him who she is. He is, of course, a grifter con artist, but he doesn't tell her who he is. And, so it goes from there, and it's really good. So actually another episode of that just came out, so I'll have to catch up on that. But I think that's it. I have not seen the new Renfield, but I would really like to. It did not make a lot of money, but that's fine because I know what to expect with a Nick Cage movie. It's going to be campy and cheesy as heck.
Truth. I actually have a connection to that statement with Renfield.
Oh.
Because last night I successfully watched a movie in a theater for the first time in almost a year,
Oh.
I went to, so we have this really great local, like old school movie
Mm-hmm.
theater, and it's walkable distance. And I was totally planning on going to a track meet yesterday. So I was planning on not doing anything for like 3 hours and being really excited for like 30 seconds, which kind of defines a date. But that didn't happen because the kid wasn't feeling good. So we didn't go to the track meet.
Mm-hmm.
So I had time to kill.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked down to the movie theater, and it is old school, like two two screens, but the upstairs theater, and you can't see me doing air quotes, but I'm doing air quotes, is like maybe 50 seats,
Mm-hmm.
and the screen is not big. Like it's maybe like an 80-inch TV screen that's
Mm-hmm.
projected. It's not huge, but it was perfect because I wanted to finally see a movie that I've talked about. And I walked in, I thought I was so clever, which in and of itself was a bad choice going in. But I
Mm-hmm.
walked up to the counter and I was like, I would like a ticket for a movie, please. And the 16-year-old behind the counter is like, yeah, what movie do you want to go to? I'm like, well, I am a 42-year-old dude with a beard going to a movie at 6:40 on a Tuesday night. Which one do you think it is? And to the kids' credit, they looked at me and they said, "Sir, we've got Renfield and Dungeons and Dragons. You got to pick."
Mm.
And I just sheepishly was like, "Oh man, this joke did not hit. This did not land anywhere, and this child hates me right now. So I'm just gonna buy my ticket for the Dungeons and Dragons movie, which I have been putting off for like 2 weeks, and it was great. Also, Tuesday night movies at Grandview Theater on Grand Avenue in Fairview in St. Paul,
Mm-hmm.
550,
Five
five
dollars and
dollars and
15 cents.
$5.50. Like I handed her a
Wow.
20, she handed me back money, and I'm already embarrassed, but I'm also like, I don't want to accuse this kid they don't know math. This is way too much change.
Wow.
$5.50. I'm going every Tuesday from now on. Like for a while, I was gonna be like, I'm gonna call people I haven't called every Tuesday. Now I'm just like, F those people. I'm going to movies. So that's my new Tuesday
Wow.
plan. But I really enjoyed it. I have a lot of things to say about it. I did not expect to go to a D&D movie and then have material that I needed to talk to my therapist about my parenting the next day. But I do. And I did. So it was good.
Mm-hmm.
But there was way more depth to the movie than I expected. And again, so many times movie trailers do not do the movie justice because they tell you it's about one thing and it's really not about that thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the people who cut the movie trailers are like, we want people to go to the movie, so make it about this. And then like the director's like, but that's not what the movie's about. I had no idea that the main character in the movie had a child because that was never mentioned in any of the trailers.
Mm-hmm.
And then it is a seminal and important part of the movie itself. In fact, the movie doesn't happen, the story doesn't happen without the child existing. But in the trailer, it was like, well, let's not make it that. Not don't mention he's got a kid. No. When it is the entire soul of the movie. So I loved the movie. I thought it did a great job of being D&D, but also being different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've wanted to punch Hugh Grant for a long time for no apparent reason because he's never done anything wrong. He
Uh-huh.
just has a very punchable face.
Mm-hmm.
So it was fun to see him get punched as well. And I thought everybody did like a really good job. And I'm kind of sad that it took me so long to see it. But I'm also mad that, okay, this is me metaphorically putting the soapbox on the ground and standing on it. For some reason, the marketers thought that if the main character had a kid,
Mm-hmm.
that D&D guys wouldn't go to the movie. And if there wasn't a love story, D&D
Oh.
guys wouldn't go to the movie. That's my theory about the market. And the really amazing and awesome thing is that like you can have a father who admits he's not a great dad and he's working on being better and also has his own like selfish moments that he's dealing with, and then also have somebody that is his best friend who may fill that, you know, like mother role, but
Hmm.
not make it a romance thing. Like there is hardly any romance in the movie, and like it blew me away that this got made where we didn't fall into any of the tropes. We didn't like it. I kept waiting for like, oh, but they're really in love the whole time, and like, but they're not. They're just like best friends, and that's cool.
Hmm.
And you don't get to see that stuff very often. So I turned the opening into an entire A side.
You're fine. You're fine. You're fine. You actually start first this week because it's 132, so you can just keep going.
Oh, good, because my A side is about that movie, but in a different way. Because I'm sitting there, I'm watching Dungeons and Dragons. I very much enjoyed it. I think there was a lot more character development than I ever expected, but that made me love it because so much about D&D and playing D&D
Hmm.
is developing a character, creating a character, becoming that character, seeing what they would do. I mean, as in my perfect world, when I run an acting school, everyone will have to play D&D and acting 101
Hmm.
because you have to create a character, know its background, know its motivations. That is what you do when you act. So you are basically just being the writer and creating the character. And it is done so well that it shocked me, honestly. Like I think I've mentioned when we talked about the old D&D movie, how excited I was for it because it was made by somebody who loved D&D, and I wanted it to be good, and it was not good. It was bad,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I was scared that this one would be bad. Like I love Chris Pine. I mean, if we're ranking Chris's, he's top two for me. I've already had this argument with a couple of people. Like I know your top one is Chris Evans.
Yes.
Yeah, number two,
I would have to go with Hemsworth.
fair, very attractive. You know, very strong, musculars and stuff.
Muscles. Yep.
But
Yep.
yeah, like Chris Pine is my number two, and I don't know why that is.
I mean, I
I
could
think
see
it's
that
Star,
he's a strong contender.
but I also think it's like the Star Trek thing. Like I'm a Star Trek nerd, and also like I want to play the characters that he gets to play. Like he has the face and the body to play those characters that I will never have. But I want to be like the dashingly handsome, roguish dude.
Hmm.
And I mean, like I'm handsome in a way that makes people dash.
That makes people
So
what?
slightly different. Dash away from me.
Oh
But
my gosh.
I was trying to do wordplay and it just it fell apart. But there was so much to the movie that I'm sitting there and I'm watching the credits and I'm like, whoever made this movie clearly loved and played D&D, but also gets it. Like they made a movie
Hmm.
without falling into the like. At no point was anybody like roll for initiative. Like they were able to take it from the gaming structure, which can bog down things, and make a movie that clearly they really loved. And then the credits roll, and I'm like, who directed this movie?
Right.
Who wrote this? Like, what's going on? Like, I haven't really paid attention because I was scared it was going to be horrible. And the name pops up of one of the writers of the movie, and it's John Francis Daley. And I was like, wait a second, why do I know that? So today's A side is a that guy from that thing because I didn't realize who the dude was who wrote this movie, co-directed it, co-wrote it, and co-directed it with his writing partner and directing partner. And one of the things that has fascinated me about growing older, besides the fact that like hair just shows up places, is that is watching like people who were child actors and like stars transition into directors and writers.
Hmm.
Like if you told me, like if I was watching She's All That in 1997 and you told me that Freddie Prinze Jr. would have more of a career as a writer than an actor, I would not have believed.
Right.
But he has. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he has transitioned into being a writer because that is what, like, yeah, he's super cute and like he's very charismatic. People like that guy can play this role the rest of his life. But Freddie Prinze said, "No, I'm good. I don't really want to play that role every day for the rest of my life. I would like to write roles for other people." You look like somebody like Bryce Dallas Howard, who is Ron Howard's daughter and was seemingly on this trajectory to be a multiple, like, huge star, Oscar nominated, but that wasn't clearly her passion. She would rather direct episodes of the Mandalorian, and some
I
of
didn't
the
realize
best.
that's what she was directing those.
Yeah, she has directed one in each season, and it, like, but she's a director and a writer now. Like, she prefers to be behind the camera, which ironically absolutely mirrors the experience of her father, who was a child star and then became a very talented director. So I kind of should have seen that one coming.
Mm-hmm.
But John Francis Daley, and this is why I feel extra dumb for not figuring it out, because about 2 weeks ago, there was a YouTube video that was recommended to me in my feed. And I have YouTube Premium because I don't sleep and I don't go out a lot. And it was the geeks from Freaks and Geeks playing D&D to promote the movie Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, that's very clever. I'm glad they got those guys back together. Like, I don't know why they did it. It doesn't seem to connect at all. Because I'm an idiot. John Francis Daley was in Freaks and Geeks. He was the leader of the Geeks. He was also on a show that I have watched nearly daily
Mm-hmm.
for the last 6 months, which is Bones,
Mm-hmm.
as Dr. Sweets, Dr. Lance Sweets. He was the co-director and co-writer, because it like, he and his partner Jonathan Goldstein are writing partners and directing partners. They directed and wrote Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes complete sense because this guy has played a lot of D&D in his life. He's played a lot of characters that love D&D. He is eminently familiar with the material and did, with his partner Jonathan Goldstein, an excellent job of adapting it and making it accessible. What I did not know, because you would think I go to a lot of pub trivia.
Mm-hmm.
I watch 3 TVs at once. I read anything I can find that is online. I had no idea of his writing and directing career that has happened since he kind of decided to stop being on TV. In season 10 of Bones, which I have not reached yet on my rewatch, and I completely forgot about it. And I've kind of been like slow rolling it because I don't want to deal with the emotional trauma, emotional damage, as the kids on TikTok
Emotional
say.
damage. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to deal with it, so I've been kind of slow rolling it because I know it's coming. Spoiler alert: he left Bones in season 10
Mm-hmm.
because he was going to work on movies. I didn't realize he was going to work on movies at the time, and I had no idea about the movies that he ended up working on. So John Francis Daley and his partner, writer director Jonathan Goldstein, have written Horrible Bosses, The Incredible Burt Wonderstone, understandably, Horrible Bosses 2,
Mm-hmm.
National Lampoon's Vacation film series Vacation from 2015, and this is the one that bothers me that I did not know. 2017, Spider-Man Homecoming was written by Lance Sweets from Bones.
Yeah.
I had no idea, and it drives me nuts.
Little bonkers.
Also, little bonkers, and it's one of those things, like, I so often feel like I know so much. Actually, every time I think I know so much. I am literally Captain Mansplaining all the time. I
No,
try not
not
to.
you. Not you.
I know, it's shocking. It's shocking. Like, I'm certainly not someone who would just interject their opinion in anyone else's conversation. I did not at lunch today convince somebody that they should pick a different career when they retired and then give them a link to a website to how to get that career.
Oh
That would be
gosh.
very, that would be very, he thanked me, but he also did it very quickly as he left. So I'm not sure if it was genuine. It might have been just his way of getting out of the conversation.
He was just like, I'm just trying to get out peacefully.
It was like, sir, I just, this is a Wendy's. Please leave me alone.
Right, right.
However, John Francis Daley has had much more of a career than I ever like. I knew he was in Freaks and Geeks. I knew he was in Bones. And that's pretty much what I thought I knew about him. And that is not nearly everything that he has done. He's been in a lot of different shows as an actor, but I mean, waiting also. If you work in the service industry or you know anyone, if you love anyone who's thinking about working in the service industry and you have not seen the movie Waiting, which stars John Francis Daley and a bunch of other people, but also Ryan Reynolds. Or if you ever want to eat in a restaurant and question whether you should eat in a restaurant, you have to see the movie Waiting. Brooke, have you seen Waiting?
I have not seen Waiting, no.
Homework between now and next Wednesday,
Okay.
because you have offspring that have worked in restaurants.
Yes. I worked in restaurants.
You need to watch this movie.
Okay.
It will change your view of restaurants. And as someone who has spent way more time back of house and in the kitchen and dealing with being a server, there's not a lot in the movie that's not true, and that's terrifying. So watch the movie Waiting, which is a great. I'm talking too much and I'm losing my voice. However, since his decision to stop being in front of the camera, he has had a very productive career. He actually was involved in writing and produce, like he does writing, he does producing. So he wrote Horrible Bosses, Incredible Burt Wonderstone. He wrote Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs too. Like that's a lot of world building you got to catch up on for the sequel. Horrible Bosses 2, Vacation, Spider-Man Homecoming, Game Night he was the director, and they pretty much rewrote all of the dialogue when they didn't ask for a credit. Stuber, which is like the
Oh yeah.
2019 like knockoff.
It's like Dave Bautista and
We've talked about Stuber. I think we did an entire episode way back when.
Yeah.
About Stuber. It's like Dave Bautista and words are hard. But basically this guy gets an Uber to try to and it becomes an action movie on accident.
Yeah.
Is it Kamal? Is it Kamal
Nanjiani? Yes, thank you.
Okay,
yes.
okay. Yeah. Yep. All right. And Natalie Morales, who's always great, plays Dave Bautista's daughter. She's also so good on the first season of Leverage, and then it got weird because they wanted to make her the love interest. They decided not to, so they got rid of her, and that was strange. Anyway, Vacation Friends, Dungeons and Dragons. He has been credited with writing the story for a movie that I am very conflicted about because I want it to be good because it is based off one of the best Flash comics ever, which is Flashpoint, which deals with multiple universes and trying to change things. The problem is Spider-Man No Way Home just did that really well, and also Ezra Miller is a problematic human being. So I don't really want to support him. And if you have any questions about why that is, just Google Ezra Miller legal issues, and because we're not doing a whole section on that. But he wrote the story, which is one of my favorite Flash stories ever. But I do think that Spider-Man Homecoming actually did it better. So I don't know how that's going to go. And I also don't think anyone should go to it because we can't support, child predators. But that's my own opinion. However, it is amazing to see somebody who is I recognize as an actor and didn't have any idea about all the things that they've done writing and directing and producing until I saw a credit flash up on screen. And it was only because I was like, who could possibly have written this movie that gets it? and they did such a good job. And like the characters are believable, and just the way that he treats a paladin is so D&D. Like those damn paladins just show up and like save the day, and then they were like, well, "Oh, this isn't my quest." And you're like, "No, dude, like you should definitely come with us on this quest." And he just goes away. Paladins, man. I'm so annoyed with them. Like this is from every D&D campaign. I have a friend who ends up always playing a paladin, and he's a really nice guy, but I hate his characters because they're always like, "This is what we do, and this is the rules." And like I always play the guy that breaks the rules. It was like, we killed a few people. It's okay. He's like, "We should never do this." I was like, "Okay, fine." Killjoy. So that maybe that was just my experience that hit so close to home. That was because John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein had played with people who played paladins like that. I was like, that's how paladins are played.
Mm-hmm.
They're awesome, but horrible to deal with. So I was very excited to learn about all the other things that he's done, and it reminds me, and this is where like I'm in this weird phase of life where my kids are getting older, going on to become adults. I mean, they've already been more adults than me for like the last 10 years, but you can never assume that somebody is one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we are allowed to grow and change. And when we grow and change, we become something different, and different isn't bad. And sometimes knowing that you've grown and changed is the best victory of all.
Well, that was strong to end off on. All right. Well, there you go. Is that the A side?
That's the A side.
Awesome. All right. So now that we've talked D&D for 2.5 hours,
which is great.
We're gonna switch.
We had a really good session. I can't believe that you fireballed that guy like 3 times. To be fair, he deserved it.
I think I need a T-shirt from Eddie's group on Stranger Things now, because I feel like I have joined the club,
the Hellfire Club. But here's the thing about like that's why it's so weird, because the Hellfire Club is actually an X-Men thing.
Oh.
Yeah, so
okay.
that really like that throws me off. I'm very confused. So I think I should just send you my favorite D&D T-shirt, and this is a very like deep D&D like cut, but it says, "Jesus saves, everyone else takes full damage."
Yeah, that's totally over my head.
Because when you get attacked, you can roll, and if like you roll high enough, then you save, and you don't have to take all the damage.
Okay.
So in this scenario, Jesus definitely rolled above a 10, and everybody else did.
All right. So this week we are, well, I should say we're switching gears.
That is my favorite. That is my favorite A side B side transition, where you just go, "All right,"
and then,
and so,
okay. So this week we are talking about the first female to be executed in the United States since 1954. Wanda Jean Allen. She was born August 17th of 1959. So that execution happened even before she was born. She's the second
the last person's execution.
Right. Yeah, she wasn't executed before she was born. The last person was executed.
Because this all of a sudden this became an entirely different podcast.
She's the second of 8 children. Unfortunately, as we have seen with many people on the B side, she had a troubled childhood. Her mom was actually an alcoholic, and then her dad left the family after her last sibling was born. So after that 8th child was born, the dad just peaced out. Like, I'm going for milk, and like never came back.
I mean, never forgivable, but with 8 kids,
I guess he just needed a nap, and that nap lasted forever.
Yeah. Everybody hits their limit, I guess. And maybe like his limit should have been having less sex.
Or, strapping up, or something, there's
just sticking around and being a dad.
But, yeah. How about that? My grandfather had 6.
8 kids.
My grandfather had 6.
If you got 8 kids, like 2 of them have to be old enough to help.
That's what I'm saying. By the time she's, a little older, she can help out. My granddad had 6 kids and like umpteen grandkids and was there for all of us. So I don't even want to hear it.
Would you have 8 children?
No, not no. I used to want 8 children, but no, because growing up, like having so many cousins and things like that, like I thought it would be fun, but as a
And you
mom,
love the movie
no,
8 is Enough? You're
you
like,
know,
"Yeah."
no, nope, can't do it. Once her
I
father
think we both
left,
got real lucky with the 2 that we got. So it's the 2 that
yes,
we each have individually. We do not have
yes,
2
we
kids
don't have
together.
2 together, no. So
No.
once Wanda's father left, the family ended up living in public housing and they had to get help through public assistance. I mean, a single mom, 8 children. Yeah, I can see that.
And you needed like an entire nonprofit foundation at that point.
Yeah. So when Wanda hit the age of 12, she ended up hit by a truck and she was knocked unconscious. She did survive, but it did have some impact on her. And then when she's around the age of 14, there was an altercation and she had actually gotten stabbed in the temple on the left side of her head. So that also added to some issues that Wanda had. So it was found that her abilities were extremely impaired due to those both of those incidents, and her IQ was found to be 69. So these incidents, of course, impacted her IQ, but they also impacted like her comprehension, her ability to express herself logically, and her ability to analyze cause and effect relationships. So it was concluded that Wanda was really vulnerable to things like becoming really stressful in everyday life. And she was just a lot more disorganized. And it was just a lot more, it was a lot easier to kind of throw her off. And, that added to the stresses of what she was going through. So by the time she was 17, she ends up dropping out of high school. So in 1981, Wanda had a roommate named Deidre Pettis. They were childhood friends, and then as roommates, they became, I'm not saying all roommates become more, but these 2 were childhood friends and roommates and ended up becoming girlfriends. On June 29th in 1981, they had kind of a turbulent relationship, it seems. And on June 29th of 1981, they got into an argument, and Wanda picked up a gun and shot and killed Deidre.
Oh, damn.
Yes. When asked about it, Wanda said that she accidentally shot Deidre from about 30 feet away from her. She said because Deidre had a boyfriend and that Deidre's boyfriend had fired a shot at her and she was just returning fire and she hit Deidre in the process.
She's trying to kill the boyfriend. She's just a bad shot.
Self-defense, yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
Well, of course, in any situation like that, there's going to be an investigation. There's forensic evidence like gunpowder. And a police expert said, no, her story is not lining up with the evidence. It completely is the evidence tells a completely different story. Because they actually found bruises and gunpowder on Deirdre's body, and it indicated that she wasn't 30 feet away, that she was actually very close, like close enough to pistol whip Deidre and shoot her at point blank range. So there was no accidental shooting here. The prosecutors actually cut a deal with Wanda. Again, think of her mental capacity. They take that into account. And she gets a 4-year sentence in exchange for a guilty plea to manslaughter. Of that 4-year sentence, she serves 2 years. Deidre Pettis was actually buried at Trice Hill Cemetery in Oklahoma City in Oklahoma. I failed to mention that this is all in Oklahoma. I told you when she was born, but I forgot to tell you where. So, okay, there you go.
I mean, I just generally assume like a state in the United States, but I felt like that was a clear, thing I should assume. So I think we're on the same.
Just assume that. So of course she got 4 years. She served 2. Well, 7 years after the death of Deidre, so in 1988, Wanda has a new girlfriend. Her name is Gloria Jean Leathers. The two actually met while Wanda was in prison for the murder of Deidre. So they had a very, very turbulent relationship. And on December 2nd of 1988, Gloria Jean ended up getting shot in front, get this, in front of the police department.
That's never a good idea to commit crimes in front of the police department.
Yeah, you probably should not do that. You probably should not do that. So she gets shot in front of the village police department in Oklahoma City. So about 15 minutes before the shooting happens, the two are in an argument at a grocery store. So obviously something, it's, I don't even want to assume, did you pick up the right melon? You didn't pick up the right melon. I don't know what their argument was about, but it's in a grocery store. And
it was, probably about melons. I mean, I have never shot somebody, but odds are I'd shoot somebody over a melon.
Yeah. I mean, it is infuriating when someone doesn't pick the right melon or the right pineapple.
Melons are just infuriating to me, like, yeah, in general.
Sorry.
Muskmelon, watermelon,
cantaloupe,
honeydew, cantaloupe. They're all the same thing, and none of them are good. They're all just taken away from the grapes.
Hey, you watch your mouth. You watch your mouth. I love a good ripe cantaloupe. See, we're about to have a fight over melons.
This is how I get shot. This is how I get shot.
So as the two are involved in this argument in the grocery store, a city officer, is in the store and hears this argument and then walks the two of them out and escorts them back to their house. So Gloria Jean goes inside and she collects her belongings. But before she leaves, Wanda asked her, "Hey, please stay. We can work this out. Let's work this out together." Wanda follows Gloria Jean to her car. Gloria Jean grabs a garden rake and she hits Wanda in the face with a tool. So Gloria Jean and her mom, they leave and they file a complaint against Wanda Jean. Wanda follows Gloria. They're both Jean, by the way. If you think I'm confusing them, I'm not.
No, I'm just having confusion by understanding which Billie Jean is the lover.
It's not his son, though.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So Wanda follows them and she says that she does not want Gloria to leave her. So Wanda approaches Gloria in the parking lot of the police station and she sees Gloria Jean still has this rake. So Wanda goes back to her car. She grabs a gun. She sees Gloria approaching. She fires one shot. Gloria's mom sees the shooting. Two police officers and a dispatcher who are in the building hear the shot, but nobody in the police department witnessed it because they're inside the building. They heard it. They didn't see it. The police find a .38 caliber handgun that they think was used in the shooting near the home that Gloria and Wanda share together. Gloria dies from her injuries 3 days later in the hospital on December 5th of 1988. She's buried at Green Acres Memorial Gardens in Tulsa County, Oklahoma. Of course, Wanda Jean is arrested. She's charged with first-degree murder, and it's announced that the prosecution is going to be seeking the death penalty. Of course, when it comes to trial, they use evidence against not Wanda, but Gloria Jean. They find that Gloria Jean had a history of violence. Remember, the two of them met in prison, and that she had actually stabbed a woman to death in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1979. So that's central to Wanda Jean's defense. She's claiming self-defense because Gloria Jean obviously was violent. Wanda testifies that she actually feared Gloria Jean because she had bragged to her about that 1979 killing. So the defense wants to use Gloria Jean's mom as a witness on their side. They want her to talk about the stabbing because obviously it's her daughter. Her daughter went to prison for the stabbing. Her daughter probably would have told her about the stabbing. But the prosecution is like, no, we don't want to use this. So the court does not allow the testimony. They considered it hearsay because her mom wasn't actually around. So it would have just been he said, she said. The prosecutor instead depicts Wanda as a remorseless killer and a liar. Probably the defense probably should have fought harder, I guess, maybe to get that testimony in from the mom, because it probably would have helped Wanda. The jury found her guilty of first-degree murder. She's sentenced to death. So during the punishment, I cannot say the word punishment. During the punishment phase, prosecutors argued that Wanda Jean should be sentenced to death because she had previously been convicted of a felony that involved the use of or the threat of violence, and that she was going to be a continued threat to society, and that she committed murder to avoid arrest or prosecution. So the jury found that the first two aggravating circumstances existed in Wanda's case. Her defense presented a bunch of like different mitigating circumstances, including her good relationship with her family, her good work habits, and that she actually did fear her victim, Gloria Jean. So in the sentencing phase, the prosecution presents testimony about the circumstances surrounding the death of her first girlfriend, Deidre Pettis, and compared this to the crimes of to the death of Gloria Jean. So they're saying she didn't really fear, she's just violent, basically. In an affidavit in 1991, Wanda Jean's defense attorney, David Preeson, stated that after the trial, he learned about Wanda's accident when she was 15, and he learned about her IQ, and he said it placed her just within the upper limit of the classification of mental retardation. And that's according to a psychologist who had analyzed her when she was younger. The attorney said, I did not search for any medical or psychological records or seek expert assistance for that information at the trial. So if he had had that information, it probably would have helped at the trial.
Mm-hmm.
A psychologist actually conducted an evaluation of Wanda in 1995 and found clear evidence of cognitive and sensory motor deficits and brain dysfunction, of course, linked to the injuries that she had when she was an adolescent. Of the 5 members of the Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board, 3 were appointed by Governor Frank Keating. Frank Keating considered giving Wanda a stay based on the issue of her education and her injury. Prosecutors said that Wanda testified during the penalty phase of her trial that she had graduated from high school and received a medical assistant certificate from a college, but she didn't. Wanda had actually dropped out of high school at the age of 16. She never finished, and of course, she did not get the medical assistant's certification. So she is sentenced to death. She spent 12 years on death row. She applied for clemency, and her clemency was denied. The reason her clemency was denied was because she had killed twice, and the parole board felt that she was a cold-blooded killer. They were not persuaded by her arguments about her mental capacity. While in prison, Wanda Jean becomes a born-again Christian. Reverend Robin Myers, who was a spiritual advisor to Wanda Allen, says, I always suspected that Wanda's renunciation of lesbianism had more to do with helping to revamp herself in the most palatable way for her clemency and appeal processes. She knew perfectly well that her being a lesbian was a big strike against her, and that it's an embarrassment in the Black community. She was going to play the best hand that she could play at the very end. And again, none of that helped her in the end. Wanda Jean Allen was executed by lethal injection by the state of Oklahoma on Thursday, January 11th of 2001 at Oklahoma State Penitentiary in McAlester. 24 relatives of her victims, Gloria Jean and Deidre Pettis, traveled to the prison for her execution. A lot of them watched from behind a tinted window, and while she was on the gurney, Wanda Jean said, Father, forgive them. They know that what they do. She also stuck her tongue out, and she smiled at her appeal attorney, David Preeson, who had become her friend. He says she was, quote, dancing on the mattress while they tried to kill her. She was pronounced dead at 9:21 p.m., and relatives of Gloria Jean Leathers expressed that the execution gave them closure. She was buried at Trice Hill Cemetery in Oklahoma City, which is the same cemetery that Deidre was actually buried at. Wanda Jean actually became a cause celeb because she was Black, a lesbian, and her legal team claimed that her diminished faculties due to her head injuries as a teen led to her actions. The last 3 months
Mhm.
of her life became the subject of an HBO documentary that portrayed the justice system, which was stacked against people who are poor, non-white, and or non-hetero. The documentary is called The Execution of Wanda Jean by filmmaker Ivana Barrios. Wanda was the first woman executed by Oklahoma since 1901 and the first Black woman to be executed in the U.S. since 1954. The last Black woman before Wanda was Betty Butter. She was the wife of a cleric who had actually been convicted for murdering her female lover. Wanda was the sixth woman to be executed since the resumation, I guess you could say, of the death penalty in 1977. There you go. That's the story of Wanda Jean Allen.
It does make you wonder if, like, they lived at different times. Would things be different, or would she have still societal pressures being what they are at
Yeah.
certain times? You wonder if
Uh,
could they have been in, or was she just the psychopath?
I think she was quite the psychopath, but would things have been different? I don't know, because she was, I think she still would have been a threat due
Yeah.
to, and I do think it is because of what, she did have diminished faculties. She, who knows how she was able to reason in her mind, but I think that's
Hmm.
also what made her a threat.
Yeah. I mean, many of us make poor decisions when our faculties are diminished by sleep or stress or
Hmm.
stimulants or depressants.
Right. So I don't know that the circumstances or excuse me, the outcomes would have been very different. Maybe in terms of she might have gotten the help she needed sooner, which could have prevented some things. But had the circumstances played out as they did, I don't know that the outcome would have been different. But there you go. That's the AM. That I was about to say that's the A side. That's the B side. Mm.
Thank you for listening to the A Side B Side podcast. If you'd like to go to our website,
Nice announcer voice.
thank you. That's the voice that I was told by consultants to stop using because
Yes.
it sounds too much like an announcer voice. But Ed, let's tell them what they've won. Well, James, they've won an amazing ability to go to the website asidebsidepodcast.site. And if you go there, you can sign up to get alerts every time that this podcast
Okay, talk
is
normal.
getting into. So you go to the website and you can get alerts when we have new episodes by signing up and putting the little alert button on, whether it's Spotify, Apple iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, uh, Audible, any of those we're available on. You can also check all of our merchandise out. And I'm very excited today to announce that we will soon have a brand new piece of merchandise, which is two tiny trophies that have Brooke's face on them. Because Brooke is now the two-time voiceover host of the ACMs. It was
Announcer,
last
not
year
host.
that she did
Announcer.
it. I'm sorry, voice host is what I said. You call announcer, I call it voice host. I've heard it both ways. But announcer of the ACM. So you will be able to see or hear her on Amazon Prime when it launches. What is the date, Brooke?
So May 11th on Prime Video, and then the next day, May 12th on Amazon Freevee, you can watch the 58th Academy of Country Music Awards hosted by Garth Brooks. First time ever that he's going to be hosting an award show, and then the return of the Queen, Dolly Parton. Super excited about that. And I think it's pretty cool because Garth actually has a Nebraska connection because he set a record for attendance here in Nebraska at Memorial Stadium for a concert he did just before I arrived in Nebraska. So Amazon Freevee on the 12th, Prime Video on the 11th. It's going to be streaming like in multiple countries, of course, nationwide. And I'm super excited to be a part of it again.
The only thing that I'm a little disappointed with is that Garth Brooks will now, after spending time with Dolly Parton, not be able to ever sing that he has friends in low places because he is literally hanging with the Queen. So that song, I hope you enjoyed it if you saw it at any of his concerts in the last 30 years because it's retired. He is now royalty.